If you don't move right now, I'm going to kiss you." Emily Carter grabbed the collar of a stranger's coat and pressed her lips against his before he could say a single word. Her stalker was 30 feet away and closing. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her teeth. But she held on, and the stranger, this tall, composed, utterly unreadable man, slowly wrapped one arm around her waist, as if he had been expecting her all along, like she belonged there. If you're watching right now, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and drop your city in the comments below. I want to see exactly how far this story has traveled. The shift had run long, the way Thursday shifts at Callaway's always did. Emily Carter had been on her feet since 3 in the afternoon, moving between tables with the automatic efficiency of someone who had learned years ago to keep her body moving, even when her mind was somewhere else entirely. The restaurant closed at 11. By 11:45, she had cashed out her drawer, wiped down the counters, changed out of her uniform in the cramped staff bathroom, and stepped out into the kind of October air that reminded you winter wasn't asking permission anymore. She had exactly one thing on her mind: Lily. Her daughter was 6 years old and staying tonight with Mrs. Okonkwo from 4B, which was a kindness Emily hadn't asked for, but had accepted with the particular dignity of a woman who had learned the difference between pride and survival. Mrs. Okonkwo was 72, sharp as a tack, and had 4 grandchildren of her own who never visited often enough. She and Lily watched nature documentaries together until Lily fell asleep, and Emily paid her $30 a night in cash, which Mrs. Okonkwo always tried to refuse, and Emily always insisted on anyway. She was thinking about Lily's shoe. The left sneaker had a sole that was starting to separate at the toe, and she had been meaning to get to the discount store on Amsterdam since Tuesday. But Tuesday had become Wednesday, and Wednesday had bled into Thursday, the way days did when you were working 2 jobs and trying to hold a life together with the strength of your hands and the stubbornness of your will. She was thinking about the shoe when she turned the corner onto West 71st Street and felt it. The feeling she had learned to recognize in her bones over the past 9 months. The weight of being watched. Emily didn't stop walking. She had read enough about dealing with stalkers in those late-night spirals she fell into. Sometimes when sleep wouldn't come, you don't stop, you don't look directly, you don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you rattle. You keep your pace even. You keep your head up. You assess without appearing to assess. She counted half a block before she let herself glance sideways at the reflection in the dark window of a closed dry cleaner. Black car. Late model sedan. Parked 40 feet behind her on the opposite side of the street. She kept walking. The car didn't move. It didn't need to. It had been parked there when she'd passed this same block 9 minutes earlier, heading in the opposite direction to grab her bag from the restaurant's back entrance. She hadn't registered then because her mind had been on Lily's shoe. Now she registered it with the cold, particular clarity of a woman who had spent 9 months learning to catalog threat. The driver's window was rolled halfway down. She couldn't see his face from here. She didn't need to. She knew the car. She knew what it meant. Marcus Webb had found her again. Emily Carter had not set out to be the kind of woman men became obsessed with. She was 34 years old, 5'4", with dark hair. She kept in a practical braid, and the kind of face that people described as kind, the way they meant it as a compliment, but which had always felt to Emily like something slightly less than beautiful. She was not remarkable in any of the ways the world typically marked women as remarkable. She was not wealthy. She was not connected. She did not move through rooms the way certain women moved, with the awareness of being observed and the skill of managing observation. She was just a woman trying to raise her daughter. Marcus Webb had other ideas about what she was. She had met him 16 months ago through a mutual friend at a neighborhood block party. The kind of event where New York briefly remembered it was supposed to be a community. He was friendly. He was presentable. He had a good job in financial compliance and wore clean shoes and laughed at the right moments and seemed for about 6 weeks like a reasonable human being. Then she had told him she didn't think they were compatible, and the world had bent into something she didn't recognize. The texts began that same night, apologetic at first, then persistent, then strange references to things he shouldn't have known, details about her schedule, her route to work, the name of Lily's school. She had blocked his number, and he had gotten a new one. She had filed a police report and been told that texts, however disturbing, didn't constitute a physical threat yet. She had changed her commute twice, switched shifts, moved apartments once already in April. He kept finding her. And what frightened Emily most, more than the car, more than the texts, more than the sick, cold feeling she carried in her chest. Every time she turned a corner was the thing she hadn't told anyone, not even her sister in Philadelphia, not even Mrs. Okonkwo, who could read Emily's face like a headline. 2 weeks ago, she had found a photograph, slipped under her apartment door. A photograph of Lily at recess, Emily's daughter playing alone near the fence at PS 145, captured through a telephoto lens from somewhere outside the schoolyard. On the back in handwriting, she had memorized the way you memorize something that terrifies you, were 4 words. She looks like you. Emily had sat on her kitchen floor with that photograph in her hands for a very long time. She hadn't called the police. She had called the school and changed Lily's pickup authorization and requested a yard monitor be positioned near the east fence. She had not slept properly in 14 days. She was thinking about all of this as she walked as the October cold pressed against her face and the black car sat motionless 50 yards behind her. She did not run. Running was what he wanted. Running told him he still had power. Emily turned left onto Broadway and lengthened her stride and told herself she would figure it out. She always figured it out. What she did not plan on was that the hotel would be the only option. The Mercer Grand was the kind of hotel that existed in New York, the way certain institutions existed too, established to advertise, too expensive to need to. Emily had a Thursday evening cleaning contract there that she had picked up through a staffing agency 4 months ago. 3 hours of work in the private conference level on the 7th floor from midnight to 3 a.m., which suited her because it paid $18 an hour, and the floors were quiet and no one looked at her twice. She had finished for the night and was crossing the lobby to the service exit when she realized she couldn't go out the way she'd come in. The black car was parked directly across from the hotel's main entrance. She had seen it from the 7th floor window when she went to get her coat from the cleaning cart. He had followed her here. He knew this job too. Emily stood in the lobby corridor and breathed. She was in a hotel. There were people here. There were cameras. Nothing was going to happen in a lobby. She told herself this, and believed approximately half of it. The service exit opened onto a side alley that connected to West 56th. That was her option. Walk fast, head down, get to the subway entrance on 7th Avenue, and take the uptown local to 72nd, and she was home in 8 minutes. She went toward the service corridor. She pushed through the door, and Marcus Webb was standing at the far end of the hallway. Not the car, not the shadow across the street. Him. In person, in the service corridor of the Mercer Grand Hotel, in his gray coat, with his hands in his pockets and his head slightly tilted, the way she remembered it tilting in those first reasonable weeks before everything went wrong. "Emily," he said, like she was expected. Her body went cold from the spine outward. She did not scream. Screaming had a cost she hadn't finished calculating yet. She did not run. Running had a direction problem. He was between her and the alley door, and she would have to pass him to reach it. She turned. She went back through the service door into the corridor and kept moving back toward the main lobby, her shoes clicking against the marble floor in a rhythm she was fighting to keep even. The door opened behind her. She could hear him. "I just want to talk," he said. "I've been patient, Emily. I think I've been very patient." The lobby corridor stretched ahead. She could see the elevator bank at the far end, the golden doors, the numbers cycling above them. There were people in the main lobby proper, but they were 60 feet away around the corner, invisible, unhelpful. She was alone in the corridor. Except for one person. A man standing near the private elevator, the one that required a key card, the one that went to the penthouse floors. He was tall, not the performative tall of men who wanted you to notice it, but simply tall in the way of a person who occupied space without thinking about it. Dark suit. No tie. Standing with the stillness of someone who was not waiting for anything, because everything he needed was already there. He was looking at his phone. He wasn't looking at her. Marcus was 10 feet behind her and closing. Emily Carter made a calculation in approximately 1.5 seconds. She crossed the corridor in 4 steps, grabbed the front of the man's coat with both hands, pulled herself up onto her toes, and kissed him. For exactly 2 seconds, nothing happened. The man went absolutely still, not the stillness of shock. She registered this even through her own hammering terror, but the stillness of someone who had been surprised and was processing it the way they processed everything, which was without visible reaction and with complete internal attention. His phone was still in his hand. Emily kept her eyes closed and held on, and thought about Lily, and the shoe, and the photograph, and all the things she was going to have to figure out if she survived the next 60 seconds. Then his arm came around her, slowly, deliberately, the way a man moves when he has decided to do something and has no particular doubts about it. He tucked her against him with a hand at her back and lowered his face slightly toward her hair and said nothing. She could feel Marcus Webb stop behind her. Marcus started. "I think you're on the wrong floor," the man said. His voice was quiet. It wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening in any register she could point to. But it filled the corridor the way certain voices filled a room, not by volume, but by absolute certainty that it would be heard, and that what followed hearing it was compliance. "I was looking for wrong floor," the man said again. A pause, the kind of pause where something was being decided. Then the sound of footsteps retreating. Then silence. Emily stood against this stranger's chest and listened to her own breathing slow from a sprint to a jog to something approaching a walk. She could feel his heartbeat through the fabric of his coat. It was entirely steady. It had not changed. Whatever had just happened had not accelerated a single thing in this man's physiology. She pulled back. She made herself look at him. He was looking at her with dark eyes that held exactly the expression she least expected, which was no expression at all. Not anger, not confusion, not offense, not the particular look men gave women who had just done something inconvenient. He was simply looking at her the way a person looks at something they find genuinely interesting. "I'm sorry," Emily said. Her voice came out steadier than she had any right to expect. "I'm so sorry. There was a man following me, and I panicked, and Is he gone?" She looked down the corridor. Empty. "Yes," she said. "Then it worked," the man said. He looked at his phone once, then he looked back at her. "Are you hurt?" "No." She shook her head. "No, I'm not hurt. I'm really sorry. I know that was I don't normally. Do you need security called?" She stopped. "He'd be gone by the time they came. And I've been to the police. It doesn't." She stopped again. She wasn't going to explain herself to a stranger in a hotel corridor. "No, thank you. I'm going to go." She stepped back. She smoothed the front of his coat where she'd grabbed it, an automatic gesture, the hands doing what the brain was too rattled to stop. He watched her do this. "How are you getting home?" he asked. "Subway." Alone. It wasn't a question. She answered it anyway. "I do it every night," she said. He considered this. "He's likely still outside." Emily knew that. She had known it before he said it. Knowing something and having someone else say it plainly were different experiences, and something in her chest pulled tight at being seen in that specific way, not pitied, not alarmed on her behalf, just acknowledged as someone dealing with a real and present situation. "I'll be fine," she said. "All right," he said. She turned to go. "The name's Adrian," he said behind her. She turned back. He hadn't moved. He was watching her with the same steady, unreadable attention. "Emily," she said. He nodded once, the small nod of someone filing information away. "Good night, Emily." She went out through the lobby and through the main entrance because she was not going back through that service corridor, and she scanned the street in both directions, and the black car was gone, and she walked to the subway fast and hard and didn't breathe properly until she was underground with the platform lights buzzing overhead and a train coming. She sat in the car and shook for exactly 3 stops. Then she stopped shaking and thought about the man in the hotel corridor and the way his arm had come around her and the fact that his heartbeat had not changed. She told herself she would never see him again, and was completely certain that was true. She was wrong about that in ways she couldn't yet imagine. By the time she got home and relieved Mrs. Okonkwo, and checked on Lily sleeping in her small bed with her arms thrown over her head, the way she always slept, Emily had reconstructed her emotional architecture into something that functioned. She was good at this. She had been doing it for years. The first time she'd had to do it was when Lily's father, Daniel, had walked out of their apartment in Cleveland when Lily was 4 months old, and Emily was still operating on approximately 3 hours of sleep per night, and the particular brand of postpartum fog that made the world feel like it was happening to someone else in another room. She had stood in the doorway watching him carry a bag down the hall and thought with a clarity that surprised her even then, I can do this. Not I'll be okay, or this will get better, or any of the comfort language people deployed at themselves in moments of crisis. Just I can do this. She had done it. She had done it in Cleveland, and then in Pittsburgh, and then in New York, which was where she had ended up, because her friend Jasmine had an extra room, and the city paid better for the kind of work Emily was qualified to do, which was work with her hands and her time, and her absolute reliability. She pulled Lily's blanket up to her shoulders and stood in the doorway of her daughter's room for a moment. Lily's left sneaker was on the floor next to the bed. The sole was coming apart at the toe. "Tomorrow," Emily said quietly to no one. "We'll fix it tomorrow." She found out who Adrian Valenti was at 7:45 the next morning. She was making Lily's lunch turkey on wheat, no mustard and apple cut into quarters, because Lily was missing her 2 front teeth and could not manage a whole one, and had her phone propped against the coffee maker, the way she did in the mornings, scrolling half-attentively through the local news when a headline from the New York business section snagged her attention. There was a photograph. The man from the hotel corridor was standing at the entrance of a building in Midtown, flanked by 2 other men, and the caption beneath the photograph read, "Adrian Valenti, CEO of Valenti Holdings." Photographed arriving at the Manhattan DA's office, following questioning related to the ongoing investigation into the Moretti organization's financial operations. Emily read the article. Then she read it again. She learned in the particular vertiginous way you learn things that rearrange what you thought you knew, that Adrian Valenti was 41 years old and had inherited his father's business interests at 22. After his father, Domenico Valenti, died under circumstances that the article described as disputed, in the careful way journalists described things they couldn't print outright. That he ran a legitimate holding company with interests in real estate logistics and private equity. That he had been connected through various investigations over the past 2 decades to organizations the article called organized crime adjacent, without quite saying what Emily's gut was already saying. That his name was known in law enforcement circles, not because he had ever been convicted of anything, but because of what happened to people who moved against him. She put her phone face down on the counter. "Mama, you're not cutting my apple," Lily said from the table. "I'm cutting it," Emily said. She picked up the knife and cut the apple. Her hands were steady. This surprised her. She packed Lily's lunch and walked her to school and came home and sat at her kitchen table for a long time. She thought about the arm that had come around her in the corridor. The voice that had filled the space without raising itself. The heartbeat that had not changed. She thought about the photograph under her door. "She looks like you." She sat at her kitchen table and thought about these things until the thinking became something that resembled a decision. Then she went to work. She did not expect him to find her. That was what she told herself when she walked out of Calloway's at midnight Friday and found a man she didn't recognize standing near the entrance. Not Marcus. A different man, larger, with the particular stillness of professional patience, holding a card with her name on it. "Ms. Carter," the man said. "Mr. Valenti would like to speak with you if you're willing." Emily looked at the card. It had an address. Nothing else. "How does he know where I work?" she asked. "Mr. Valenti is thorough," the man said. She should have said no. She knew this. She was aware, standing on the sidewalk outside Calloway's with the October cold, doing what it did, and her feet aching from 8 hours on them, that the smart move was to say no and walk to the subway and go home and lock her door. She took the card. "Tell him I'll come," she said. "But I'm not staying long." Valenti Holdings occupied the top 3 floors of a building on Park Avenue that had the hushed, expensive silence of places where serious decisions were made and never repeated outside their walls. The lobby guard was expecting her. The elevator required a key card that the large patient man provided. She went up without ceremony. Adrian Valenti was standing at a window when she was shown into his office, his back to her, looking out at the city, with the expression she couldn't see it yet. But she already knew it of a man who was entirely accustomed to looking at things from high places. He turned when he heard her. He looked different here than he had in the hotel corridor. Not larger, not more intimidating, just in context, like seeing an animal in its natural habitat and finally understanding what you had encountered. "You didn't have to come," he said. "No," Emily agreed. "But I was curious." Something moved in his expression. She could not quite name it. "Sit down," he said. "I'll stand," she said. "I said I wasn't staying long." A pause. Then, and she would think about this moment later, she would turn it over in her mind, the way you turn over a stone to see what lives under it. He almost smiled. "Fair enough," he said. He came to stand on the other side of his desk. He didn't sit either. "I had your situation looked into," he said. The temperature in Emily's chest dropped about 10 degrees. "I didn't ask you to do that." "No," he agreed. "You didn't." "Then why?" "Because," he said simply, "you kissed me in a hotel corridor, and I wanted to understand what you were running from." She opened her mouth and closed it. "Marcus Webb," Adrian said. 37, financial compliance analyst at Hargrove & Webb on the 42nd floor of 1221 Avenue of the Americas. Filed for bankruptcy, twice the second time, under circumstances that involved an investigation that was later dropped. 2 previous restraining orders filed by 2 different women, both of which were ultimately allowed to lapse. Emily's throat tightened. "You knew about the previous women," Adrian said. "The police told me," she said. "They said it wasn't enough." "The police were looking at it as a harassment case," Adrian said. "I had someone look at it differently." He opened a folder on his desk and turned it toward her. She didn't pick it up. She looked at it from where she stood. "Webb has been in contact with a private investigative firm," Adrian said. "They've been compiling a file on you, your employment history, your financial records, your lease history. They filed a motion 6 weeks ago through an attorney." Emily looked up. "A custody motion," Adrian said quietly. "He's building a case to claim that you're an unfit mother." The room tilted. Emily put her hand on the back of the chair she had refused to sit in and held it there because she needed something solid. "He can't," she said. "He has no legal. He doesn't need a legal relationship. He needs a judge and a claim and the appearance of evidence," Adrian said. "The firm he hired specializes in this. They manufacture narratives. It's not fast, but it's not impossible." He paused. "That's what the photograph was. Not a threat. A data point. He was documenting your daughter." Emily heard a sound that she realized after a moment was coming from her. Not crying. Not quite. Something before crying that sits behind the sternum. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Adrian looked at her steadily. "Because you need to know," he said. "And what do you want in return?" she asked. The question sat in the air between them. "Nothing," he said. She stared at him. "Men like you don't do things for nothing." "Men like me," he repeated, not offended, considering it. "I read the article this morning," she said. "About the DA's office. About your families." She paused, choosing business interests. "Then you know what I am," he said. "I know what the newspaper thinks you are," she said. Something shifted in his face. Slower this time. More visible. "That's a careful distinction," he said. "I'm a careful person," Emily said. "I have to be." They looked at each other across the desk. "I can make Webb stop," Adrian said. "How?" "By making it clear to him that continuing is not in his interest." "Meaning you threaten him." "Meaning I make the cost of continuing higher than the benefit," Adrian said. "There's a difference." "Not much of one." "Enough of one," he said. Emily looked at the folder on the desk, at the documents inside it, at the evidence of something she hadn't known was coming for her daughter, assembled by a man who had no right to her daughter's life, documented by people paid to destroy the small, hard-won world she had built. "I don't want your help," she said. Adrian said nothing. "I appreciate that you told me," Emily said. "I do. But I don't want someone else to own my problem. I've been dealing with this myself, and I'll keep dealing with it myself, and I need that to stay true." A long pause. "Why?" Adrian asked. The question was quiet and genuine, not challenging, actually curious. "Because," Emily said, and her voice was steady, and she was proud of it. "If someone else solves this, then every time I look at my daughter, I'll know that I needed saving. And she's watching. She's 6 years old, and she's watching every single thing I do, and I will not let her grow up thinking her mother needed a man to fix her problems. I don't care who the man is." The silence that followed was the longest of the conversation. Adrian Valenti looked at Emily Carter with those dark, unreadable eyes, and for the first time in the conversation, she had the distinct impression that something she had said had reached a place in him that was not typically reachable. "I understand," he said. "Do you? Possibly better than you'd expect," he said. She took her hand off the chair. "Then use whatever you found to help me build a case with a real lawyer," she said. "Not to make threats on my behalf, not to solve it for me. Help me solve it myself." He was quiet for a moment. "I know an attorney," he said. "Family law. She's handled situations like this before." "Does she owe you a favor?" Emily asked. "She works for me," he said. "She's very good." "I'll pay her rate," Emily said. "She bills $400 an hour. Then I'll pay her in installments," Emily said. "And I'll pay every cent myself." Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. He spoke for less than 30 seconds. He gave Emily's name and said tomorrow morning if possible, and listened and said thank you and hung up. 9 o'clock, he said. "Her name is Catherine Marsh. Office is on Madison and 58th. She'll have everything I've compiled." "Thank you," Emily said. She picked up her bag. "Emily," he said. She turned. "He won't follow you home tonight," Adrian said. "You can't know that." "I can actually." She looked at him. "He's been made aware," Adrian said carefully, "that his activities this evening have been observed and documented. He's aware that continued physical proximity to you has consequences that he is currently in the process of calculating." Emily understood what this meant and chose not to examine it too closely. "Good night, Mr. Valenti," she said. "Adrian," he said. She looked at him one more time. "Good night, Adrian," she said. She went down in the elevator and out through the lobby and onto Park Avenue, and the October air hit her face, and she stood on the sidewalk for a moment and breathed. She thought about the folder on his desk. She thought about what he had learned in less than 24 hours that the police hadn't figured out in 9 months. She thought about the way he had said, "I understand," not dismissively, not as a concession, but with the weight of someone who actually meant it. She walked to the subway. She went home. She sat at the kitchen table and looked at Lily's left sneaker and thought about what it meant to fight for something so hard that you forgot what it felt like to not be fighting. Then she opened her laptop and found the website for Catherine Marsh, attorney at law, and read every word on it before she went to sleep. Tomorrow, she was going to start fighting smarter. And somewhere across the city, in an office on the top floor of a Park Avenue building, a man who had spent his entire adult life watching people want things from him, sat alone and thought about a woman who had wanted nothing except to be handed the tools to save herself. It was the most unusual thing that had happened to him in 20 years. He found himself thinking about it for a very long time. Catherine Marsh's office smelled like strong coffee and old paper, the particular combination of a place where serious work got done without apology. Emily arrived at 8:52, 7 minutes before her appointment, because she was the kind of woman who arrived early to things that mattered. The receptionist showed her in immediately. Catherine Marsh was 53, compact silver-haired, and had the eyes of someone who had spent 30 years watching people lie to her, and had developed a tolerance for it, the way some people developed a tolerance for spicy food. She stood when Emily entered and shook her hand with a firm, clean grip. "Sit down," Catherine said. "We have a lot to go through and I don't waste time." Emily sat. She liked her immediately. The folder Adrian had compiled was already open on Catherine's desk, tabbed and annotated in red pen. Catherine had clearly been through it before Emily arrived. She had not simply received it that morning. She had worked it. "He's been building this for 4 months," Catherine said without preamble. "The custody angle is real. It's not a bluff, and it's not just harassment. This is a man who decided that if he couldn't have you, he would take something that belonged to you." Emily kept her face still. "What are my options?" she said. "Several, and we're going to pursue all of them simultaneously." Catherine turned the folder around so Emily could see the tabbed sections. "First, we file for a temporary restraining order today. Not tomorrow. Today. I have a judge who can hear it this afternoon if we move fast. The documentation your—" she paused, choosing her word, "contact provided, gives us enough to argue imminent threat to both you and your daughter." "Will it hold?" "It'll hold long enough for the second piece," Catherine said. "The PI firm Webb hired Hartwell Associates. They have a pattern. I've seen them before. They operate in a legal gray area, and they know how to stay just inside it. But twice in the last 3 years, they've had complaints filed against them for evidence fabrication. Nothing that stuck, but it's on record." She tapped the folder. "If I can get discovery on their methods in this case, I can challenge anything they've compiled on you. How long does all of this take?" "Fast if we push it. Weeks, not months." Catherine looked at Emily directly. "This is winnable. I want you to hear that. This is completely winnable." Emily breathed out slowly. "She said you'd pay installments," Catherine said, not unkindly. "Yes. My standard rate is $400 an hour. I'm going to charge you $150, and we'll call it an arrangement." "I said I'd pay the full rate," Emily said. "I know what you said." Catherine closed the folder. "I'm charging you $150 because I've built a career fighting people like Marcus Webb, and I take a certain professional satisfaction in it that has monetary value to me. So let me have my satisfaction and stop arguing about the rate." Emily looked at her. "Okay," she said. "Good." Catherine picked up her pen. "Now tell me everything from the beginning in your own words, and don't leave anything out because you think it's too small. The small things are frequently where the case lives." Emily told her everything. She talked for 40 minutes. Catherine wrote without interrupting, occasionally circling something or drawing a line connecting 2 points in the margin. And when Emily finished, Catherine set down her pen and looked at her with the expression of someone who has just confirmed a suspicion. "The photograph of your daughter," Catherine said. "Yes." "You still have it?" "In a plastic bag in my bedside drawer. I read somewhere not to handle it more than necessary." Catherine almost smiled. "Good instinct. That's potential evidence of aggravated stalking under New York Penal Code 120.60. The fact that he photographed a minor escalates this significantly." She made a note. "I'm going to need you to bring that to me today. Can you do that after we finish here?" "Yes," Emily said. "Then we're going to be fine," Catherine said. Emily went home, retrieved the photograph from her bedside drawer with hands that were steadier than she expected, and was back in Catherine's office by 11:15. She dropped Lily at school, told Mrs. Okonkwo she might need help with pickup, and spent the rest of the morning signing documents and answering questions, and doing the practical forward-moving work of someone who had decided to stop surviving and start fighting. She did not think about Adrian Valenti until she was back on the street at 2 in the afternoon, blinking in the midday light. Then she thought about him quite a lot. He called her that evening. She was in the middle of making Lily's dinner when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize, and she answered it with the particular wariness of a woman who had been answering unknown numbers carefully for 9 months. "How did the meeting go?" Adrian said. "You could have asked Catherine," Emily said. "Attorney-client privilege," he said. "She wouldn't tell me." "Then you knew you'd have to ask me directly." A pause. "How did it go?" he said again. Emily put the wooden spoon down on the counter. "It went well. She's filing the TRO today. She thinks we can challenge the PI firm's evidence if it goes to any kind of proceeding." "It won't get that far," Adrian said. Because you're going to do something, Emily said. Because Catherine Marsh is very good at her job, he said. That's all I meant. She didn't entirely believe him. She decided not to push it. Thank you, she said, for the referral and for the information. You're welcome. A silence that was not uncomfortable in the way silences usually weren't uncomfortable with him she was noticing. He seemed to exist comfortably in silence in a way most people didn't. Can I ask you something? Emily said. Yes. Why do you care about any of this? She picked up the spoon again, stirring automatically. You're a very busy and very powerful man, and I'm a stranger who kissed you in a hotel corridor. What's your actual interest here? The pause this time was longer. I'm not sure I can answer that in a way that would satisfy you, he said. Try anyway. You reminded me of something, he said. That's the most honest answer I have. Reminded you of what? That most people are afraid of me, he said. And you weren't. Emily considered this. I was afraid of the man following me. I didn't have room left to be afraid of you too. That's exactly it, he said quietly. She stirred the pot on the stove and thought about that. Mama, the pasta's going to burn, Lily said from the table where she was doing her homework with the focused intensity of a child who took coloring very seriously. It's not going to burn, Emily said. It smells like it's burning. Emily turned the heat down. It wasn't burning. Adrian, she said back into the phone. I have to feed my daughter. Of course, he said. Good night, Emily. Good night. She hung up. She served the pasta. She sat across from her daughter and watched Lily tell her in enormous detail about a disagreement that had occurred at recess involving a jump rope and a dispute about whose turn it was, and Emily listened to every word of it and asked the right questions and felt for the first time in 9 months something loosen in her chest. Just slightly. Just enough. The restraining order came through in 3 days. Catherine called her on a Tuesday morning, and Emily was between shifts sitting on a bench outside the restaurant with a coffee she couldn't quite afford, and her feet that she absolutely needed to rest. And when Catherine said the words, "It's been granted, he's been served." Emily, are you listening? Emily sat very still for a moment with the phone against her ear and the October air moving around her. Yes, she said. I'm listening. Temporary order covering you and Lily both. 200 yards. Includes his place of employment and the school. If he comes within that distance, he's in violation and he can be arrested. Emily looked at a pigeon that was investigating something on the sidewalk 3 feet away. What happens now? She said. Now we go back to court in 3 weeks for the full hearing, Catherine said. I need you to document everything in the meantime. Any contact, any vehicle you think is his, any messages from numbers you don't recognize. Screenshot and timestamp everything. I've been doing that for 9 months, Emily said. Then you're already ahead, Catherine said. How are you doing? I'm fine. Emily. I'm fine, Emily said again, and her voice stayed level, and she meant it mostly. She called Adrian to tell him. She wasn't entirely sure why she called him. It wasn't like he had a stake in the legal outcome, not officially, not in any way she could point to, but she called him, and he answered on the second ring, and she told him the TRO had been granted. Good, he said. That's all you have to say. What else would I say? Most people say congratulations. Most people weren't involved in building the file that made it possible, he said. This isn't a surprise to me. It's a logical outcome. Emily laughed. She surprised herself with it, a real laugh, short and genuine, the kind that didn't ask permission first. That's a very strange way to respond to good news, she said. I'm told I have a strange way of responding to most things, he said. By whom? A pause. People who work for me mostly. Do they tell you this to your face? Not usually, he said. Then how do you know? I'm perceptive, he said. She laughed again. It felt good. It felt like something she had forgotten the muscle memory of. Emily, he said. Yes. Would you have dinner with me? The question landed in the space between them and sat there with more weight than 4 words should carry. Adrian, she said carefully, not as a... He paused, and she had the distinct impression he was choosing language with precision. "I'm not asking you to dinner as a transaction. I'm aware of how that might sound given the circumstances. I'm asking because I'd like to talk to you somewhere that isn't a hotel corridor or a phone call." "Why?" "Because," he said, and then stopped. "Because," she pressed. "Because you're the only person I've spoken to in a very long time who has made me feel like a person," he said, and the flatness of how he said it, not performing vulnerability, not polishing it, just stating it was what got her. She was quiet for a moment. "I have a 6-year-old, she said. "I know. I can't do complicated. I know that too." "Then you know that dinner with you is the definition of complicated," she said. "Probably," he agreed. "Have dinner with me anyway." Emily looked at the pigeon. The pigeon looked back at her with the profound indifference of a pigeon. "Saturday," she said. 7 o'clock, and not somewhere expensive. I'm not comfortable with expensive right now." "Define not expensive." "Under $50 for both of us," she said. The pause was so long she thought the call had dropped. "Adrian." "I'm trying to think of somewhere under $50, he said. "Have you ever been somewhere under $50? "Not recently," he said honestly. "There's a Vietnamese place on Columbus that's excellent, and the dumplings are $4 for 8, she said. "I'll send you the address." "All right," he said. "Don't bring security," she said. "Emily." "I'm serious. No security, no cars, no men standing outside. I'm a woman going to dinner, and I don't want it to look like anything other than that." A long pause. "One car," he said. "Parked around the block. They won't come inside." "One car parked around the block and they stay outside," she said. "Agreed." 7 o'clock Saturday, she said. "I'll be there," he said. She hung up and sat with her coffee going cold in her hand, and thought about what she had just done. She catalogued the reasons it was foolish. There were several. She was aware of all of them. Then she finished her coffee, stood up, and went back to work. Saturday came faster than she expected, and slower than she could stand. She wore the green dress she had bought 2 years ago for her friend Jasmine's wedding, and had not worn since. It was simple, and it fit well, and Lily said she looked like a forest, which Lily meant as a compliment, and which Emily chose to receive as one. "Where are you going?" Lily asked, sitting on Emily's bed watching her put on earrings. "Dinner with a friend," Emily said. "What friend?" "Someone I met recently." "What's their name?" "Adrian." Lily considered this. "Is Adrian a boy or a girl?" "A man," Emily said. Lily was quiet for a moment with the thoughtful expression she got when processing information that required her full attention. "Is he nice?" Lily asked. Emily put in her second earring. She thought about the arm that had come around her in the corridor, the heartbeat that didn't change, the way he had said "I understand" without making it about himself. "I think so," she said. "I'm still finding out." "You should find out," Lily said seriously. "Mama, you need a friend." Emily looked at her daughter's face, this serious, brown-eyed, gap-toothed 6-year-old who had her father's forehead and Emily's stubbornness, and her own particular brand of unnerving perceptiveness, and felt something move in her chest that she didn't have a name for. "You're my friend," Emily said. "Mamas and kids can't just be each other's only friends," Lily said. "Mrs. Okonkwo told me that." "Mrs. Okonkwo is going to get an earful," Emily said, and Lily giggled, and Emily kissed the top of her head and went to dinner. He was already there when she arrived. This surprised her. She had expected him to be late the way powerful men were sometimes late because their time had a different weight than other people's time. He was sitting at the table she had texted ahead to reserve, the one in the back near the window, and he was wearing a dark jacket with no tie and looking at the menu with the focused attention of someone encountering an object in a foreign language. He stood when he saw her coming. Nobody had stood for her in a very long time. She noted it. "You made it," she said. "I said I would," he said. "The menu's in Vietnamese and English," she said, sitting. "The English translations are a little loose, but the pictures are good." He sat. He looked at the menu. "What do you recommend?" "Everything," she said. "The pho is exceptional. The dumplings are what I come for. The shrimp rolls are good if you're not hungry enough for pho. What are you having? Pho and dumplings, she said. Always. Then the same, he said, and put the menu down with the air of a man who had just resolved a situation. She looked at him across the small table with its paper placemats and its little vase with a single fake flower in it. He looked slightly too large for the chair. Not physically, he was lean, not imposing in the way you'd expect, but in the sense that he seemed like someone who usually occupied more space than he was currently taking up, who had chosen deliberately to compress himself into this small, ordinary place. "You've never eaten here," she said. "I've never eaten anywhere like here," he said. "Do you like it?" He looked around. "I don't know yet," he said. "Ask me after the food." The food came. He tried the pho with the careful attention of a man approaching something unfamiliar with respect, rather than condescension. I was quiet while he ate for a moment, and then he looked up. "This is very good," he said, like he meant it. "Told you," Emily said. "You did," he agreed. They ate. They talked. And what struck Emily, what she would come back to later, lying in bed after Mrs. Okonkwo had gone home and Lily was asleep, was how ordinary it was. Not boring, not flat, but ordinary in the way good things were, ordinary conversations that moved without effort, that doubled back on themselves and went somewhere unexpected without apology. He asked about Lily. Not as a courtesy. He asked because he genuinely seemed curious about her, about what she was like, what she was interested in, whether she had her mother's instinct for what she wanted. "She's smarter than me," Emily said. "She's 6 and she's already smarter than me." "What makes you say that?" "She told me tonight that mamas and kids can't just be each other's only friends," Emily said. "She got that from my neighbor, but she retained it and deployed it with precision and timing." Something happened to Adrian's face. Not quite a smile, something gentler than a smile. "She sounds remarkable," he said. "She is," Emily said. "She's the best person I know, and I know I'm supposed to be objective, but I'm not." "You shouldn't be," he said. "Objectivity about your child isn't a virtue. It's a failure of attention." Emily looked at him. "Where did that come from?" she asked. "I don't know," he said, and he seemed faintly surprised himself, the way people are surprised when something comes out of their mouth that they didn't know they believed until they heard themselves say it. "Tell me about you," Emily said. "What do you want to know? What you were like before all of this," she said, gesturing vaguely. "Before the business and the DA's office and whatever it is you actually do." His hand stilled around his soup bowl. "That was a long time ago," he said. "What were you like?" He thought about it. She watched him think about it, genuinely. Think about it, not perform thinking the way people did when they wanted you to believe they were considering your question carefully. "Angry," he said finally. "I was very angry. My father died when I was 22, and I inherited things I wasn't prepared for, and I was angry about all of it, and I turned that into something I could control." "Did it work?" "For 20 years, he said. "More or less." "What changed?" He looked at her across the table. "I haven't figured that out yet," he said. Emily looked at him for a long moment. "You know what I notice about you?" "Tell me." "You never try to seem like something you're not," she said. "Most people, when they want something, they perform. They put on a version of themselves they think you'll respond to. You don't do that." "Does it put you off?" he asked. "No," she said. "It's one of the more unusual things about you." "I've never seen the point in performance," he said. "People can tell eventually, and then you've wasted both your time and theirs." "How many people do you actually talk to?" Emily asked. "Like this, like a person." The pause was answer enough. "Not many," he said. "That's lonely," Emily said. "Yes," he said, simply, without defending it. Emily finished her pho. She looked at the last dumpling on the plate between them. "You should take that," she said. "You paid for dinner." "You said under $50, he said. "This was 38. "I know. I was checking," she said. He almost smiled. He took the dumpling. They walked out together onto Columbus Avenue. The cold had the particular edge of a night that was trying to be winter before it was quite allowed to be. She pulled her coat around her, and he stood with his hands in his pockets, and they looked at each other on the sidewalk. "Thank you for coming," she said. "And she paused. "For being normal about it." "I'll take normal," he said. "It's not a word that comes up often." She started to say goodnight. She had the sentence in her mouth. Then she looked at his face. This strange, contained, lonely man, who had sat in a small Vietnamese restaurant and eaten pho for the first time, and asked about her daughter, like he actually wanted to know, and she said instead, "Do you want to come to the park on Sunday? Lily likes the one on Central Park West. The one with the big climbing structure. She's been asking me to go for 2 weeks, and I keep saying yes and then working." Adrian Valenti looked at her. "A park," he said. "Yes. With your daughter." "With my daughter. She's 6. She likes to monologue about penguins. It's a whole thing." Emily paused. "You don't have to. I don't know why I—" "What time?" he said. 10 char, she said. "I'll be there," he said. She went home. She paid Mrs. Okonkwo and checked on Lily and changed out of the green dress and lay in the dark of her room with the city doing its quiet thing outside her window, and she thought about what she was doing and whether it was wise and came to no satisfying conclusion. But she thought about the dumpling and the way he had said, "I haven't figured that out yet," and the gentleness that had crossed his face when she talked about Lily, and she decided that wisdom and good judgment were not always the same thing. Sunday came gray and cold, and Lily put on her red coat and her repaired sneaker. Emily had glued the sole back properly. Friday morning at 6 a.m. "Thank you very much," and took Emily's hand on the way to the park with the particular grip of a child who had somewhere specific to be. Adrian was already there. I was standing near the entrance to the climbing structure in a dark coat that was significantly too formal for a Sunday park holding something. Emily got closer and realized it was a small paper bag from the bakery on 71st Street. "You brought food," Emily said. "Croissants," he said. "I didn't know if that was appropriate." "It's a park," she said. "Croissants are always appropriate." He looked down. Lily was looking up at him with the frank assessing gaze of a 6-year-old who had not yet learned that staring was socially complicated. "Are you Adrian?" Lily asked. "I am," he said. "I'm Lily," she said. "Do you like penguins?" He considered this with complete seriousness. "I don't know very much about penguins," he said. Lily's face illuminated with the particular joy of someone who has just found an empty canvas. "I know everything about penguins," she said. "I'll tell you." "All right," Adrian said. Emily watched her daughter take this man's large hand, just took it, unasked the way children took hands when they decided someone was worth showing something to, and pull him toward a bench, talking at full speed about the emperor penguin's capacity to hold its breath for 20 minutes, and something happened in Emily's chest that she was not prepared for and could not immediately name. It sat there warm and complicated while Lily talked, and Adrian listened with his full attention, the way he gave everything his full attention, and while Emily ate a croissant and watched them and thought about being afraid, and about courage, and about all the things she had told herself she didn't have room for. After an hour, Lily climbed the structure, and Adrian stood at the base of it, with his hands in his pockets, watching her with an expression Emily had not seen on his face before. Alert. Present. Something close to wonder actually at the particular fearlessness of a small child who saw high things and simply went up them without deliberation. Emily came to stand next to him. "She doesn't think about it," he said quietly. "She just goes." "She's 6, Emily said. "When did we stop doing that?" he said. Emily looked up at Lily on the top of the climbing structure, her red coat bright against the gray sky, already calling down to them about something, her face open and entirely unguarded. "I don't know," Emily said, "but I'm trying to figure it out." Adrian looked at her, and Emily looked back. And whatever it was that had been building between them since a hotel corridor and a desperate kiss and a Vietnamese restaurant and a paper bag of croissants sat between them in the cold morning air of a Sunday park and waited patient as gravity for them to catch up with it. What neither of them knew, what nothing in this quiet ordinary Sunday had given them any reason to suspect, was that 3 miles away in a building neither of them had visited and a conversation neither of them had heard, something was being set in motion that would make everything that had come before look like the easy part. Someone had been watching them for longer than Marcus Webb. And unlike Marcus Webb, this person had nothing to do with obsession. This person had everything to do with the past that Adrian Valenti had tried for 20 years to outrun. The trap was already closing. They just didn't know it yet. The call came on a Wednesday. Emily was between her lunch shift and her evening shift, sitting in the break room at Calloway's with a sandwich. She was only half eating when her phone buzzed and Catherine Marsh's name appeared on the screen. Emily picked up before the second ring. "The hearing is in 6 days," Catherine said. "I need you to come in tomorrow. There's something I have to show you in person." "What is it?" "Tomorrow," Catherine said. "My office, 9 o'clock. And Emily, don't look it up tonight. Don't Google anything. Just come in." Emily set her sandwich down. "Catherine, tell me what it is." A pause that lasted exactly long enough to confirm it was something serious. "Marcus Webb doesn't work for himself," Catherine said. "He never did." She didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark and listened to Lily breathing through the baby monitor. She still kept on out of habit. Lily was 6 too old for it, but Emily had never turned it off, and Lily had never asked her to, and she ran Catherine's words through her mind in every possible configuration, and none of them came out to anything that felt less dangerous than what her gut was already telling her. Marcus Webb doesn't work for himself. She thought about the 9 months. The car outside her building. The photograph under her door. The custody motion that had come out of nowhere, built by a PI firm she had never heard of, targeting a life she had assembled, piece by careful piece, from the wreckage of everything that had come before. She had thought it was obsession. She had thought it was one broken man who couldn't accept no for an answer. She had been wrong about the shape of it. At 5 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and made coffee and sat at her kitchen table and did the thing Catherine had told her not to do. She Googled Marcus Webb. She found nothing she hadn't found before. His LinkedIn. A photograph from a company event. Nothing remarkable. Nothing that pointed anywhere. Then she sat with her coffee and thought about Adrian, because Adrian was the new variable in the equation. The thing that hadn't been there 9 months ago when this started. And she thought about the way he had stood at the base of the climbing structure, watching Lily with something close to wonder on his face, and she thought about the paper bag of croissants and the faux restaurant, and the night in his office when he had opened a folder on his desk and told her about the custody motion. She called him at 5:47 a.m. He answered on the first ring. "You're awake," she said. "I don't sleep much," he said. No surprise in his voice at the hour. No irritation. "Catherine called me last night," Emily said. "She said Marcus Webb doesn't work for himself. She said she'll explain tomorrow morning, but she told me not to look anything up, and I did anyway, and I didn't find anything, and now I can't stop thinking about it." A silence. Not the thoughtful silence she had come to recognize from him. A different kind. "Adrian," she said. "Come to my office," he said. "Now if you can." "It's 6 in the morning." "I'm aware," he said. "Come anyway." His office at 6 a.m. was the same as his office at midnight, which said something about how he lived that she hadn't fully considered before. The same quiet. The same Park Avenue height above the city. The same man who stood when she came in and looked at her with those dark eyes that were already telling her something before his mouth did. She didn't sit. She stood on the other side of his desk the way she had the first night, and she looked at him and she said, "You already know something. Tell me what you know." Adrian sat down. He laced his hands together on the desk. He looked at her for a moment with the expression of a man deciding how to say something he has been trying to find the right time for. "There's no right time," Emily said. "Just say it. 3 weeks ago, when I had Webb investigated," he said, "there were things I found that I didn't tell you." Emily felt the cold start at the base of her spine. "I didn't tell you because I wanted to be certain," he said. "And because I was hoping I was wrong." "Are you wrong?" "No," he said. He opened his desk drawer and laid a folder on the surface between them. Thicker than the first one. She opened it. The name on the inside tab was not Marcus Webb's. It was Renato Caruso. "I don't know that name," Emily said. "You wouldn't," Adrian said. 10 years ago, there was an organization operating in New York and across 4 states. They ran money through legitimate businesses, construction, import, private lending. My father's organization had an arrangement with them going back 20 years. A partnership, more or less. When my father died and I took over, I discovered what they had actually been doing with that arrangement. Emily looked up from the folder. They had been using my family's name and infrastructure to move things that I would not have permitted, he said. Weapons, people. My father didn't know the full scope of it, I'm certain of that. But I did know, and I had a choice to make. What did you do? Emily asked, though she suspected she already knew. I terminated the arrangement, he said. And I gave everything I had on their operations to the federal authorities. Emily set the folder down on his desk. You were the informant, she said. I provided information, he said precisely. The distinction matters legally, but I understand why it looks like the same thing. What happened to them? Renato Caruso served 8 years of a 15-year sentence, Adrian said. He was released 14 months ago. The number landed. 14 months ago. 3 months before Marcus Webb had shown up at a neighborhood block party and introduced himself to Emily Carter as a reasonable human being with clean shoes and a good laugh. Emily sat down. She did it without thinking about it, which was how she knew her legs had made the decision before her brain caught up. He sent Webb to me, she said. Webb isn't obsessed with you, Emily, Adrian said quietly. He was assigned to you. You were the tool. The goal was always to find a lever against me, and he spent 6 weeks identifying whether you had the kind of connection to me that would make you useful. When you didn't, when you told him you weren't compatible and tried to end contact, he was instructed to escalate anyway. To create a situation I would feel compelled to involve myself in. Emily stared at him. They manufactured the obsession, she said. The texts, the photograph, the custody motion, all of it was designed to make you visible to me, yes, Adrian said. They knew my patterns. They knew that if a woman connected to my environment was being threatened, I would investigate. And once I investigated, I would become involved. And once I became involved, you became the story, Emily said. You became the thing they could use against you. That was the plan, he said. Emily sat with this for a long moment. She thought about the hotel corridor. The kiss that had never been random chance. She thought about a man in a gray coat who had stood at the end of a hallway saying, I just want to talk, Emily. I've been very patient, and the reality that his patience had been professional paid for directed. I was bait, she said. You were chosen, Adrian said carefully. There's a difference. They selected you because of where you worked, because of the hotel contract, because you were positioned in a way that created proximity to places I frequented. They chose you because you were a single mother with no family in the city and limited resources because they believed that made you vulnerable and manageable. They were wrong about manageable, Emily said. Yes, he said, considerably. She looked at him across the desk. You've known this for 3 weeks, she said. I've suspected it for 3 weeks. I've been certain for 6 days. 6 days, she repeated. Adrian, 6 days ago we were in the park with my daughter. I know, he said. You stood there and watched Lily climb that structure, and you already knew that everything that had happened to us was because someone was trying to hurt you, and I was the instrument they chose. Her voice was even. She was working to keep it even. Yes, he said. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to know how far it went before I told you, he said. Because I needed to know whether you were safe before I told you. Because finding out what I know and then walking out my door into unresolved danger is worse than not knowing yet. That is not your decision to make, Emily said. No, he said. You're right, it isn't. He said it without defense or qualification. Just you're right. She sat with her hands folded in her lap and looked at him and thought about all the things she had built in the past 2 years, and all the things she was still building, and all the ways a choice made by a man she hadn't met yet, a choice made in a boardroom or a federal building 10 years ago had reached forward through time and wrapped itself around her daughter's life like a hand around a throat. Is Lily in danger? She said. Not immediate danger, he said. Caruso's goal is pressure on me, not harm to you or her. Harm to you defeats his purpose, which is to give me something to react to. He wants me reactive, not retaliating. What's the difference? A reactive man makes mistakes, Adrian said. A retaliating man is dangerous. And what are you? Emily asked. A pause. Right now, he said, I'm trying very hard to be neither. Catherine Marsh's office at 9 a.m. had the same folder Emily had already seen an hour earlier, and Catherine herself had the expression of a woman who had spent the night working and was not entirely sure what she was going to say when her client walked in. Emily sat down and said, I already know about Caruso. Adrian told me this morning. Catherine looked at her for a moment. Of course he did, she said, and closed the folder. How much do you know? Enough, Emily said. What I need to know from you is what it means for the restraining order and the hearing and all the legal pieces. The TRO still stands, Catherine said. Webb violated it twice in the last 6 days. I have documentation of both instances, and we're filing for contempt today. More importantly, what I found in my own investigation of Hartwell Associates. She tapped a second folder on her desk. Is that the evidence they compiled against you is largely fabricated. The financial records they presented are selectively edited. The incident reports they reference don't exist. I can prove this. Then we can get the custody motion dismissed, Emily said. I can get it dismissed, and I can get Webb sanctioned, and I can potentially get Hartwell Associates investigated, Catherine said. What I can't do is touch Caruso. What he orchestrated is a federal matter, and it's above my lane. Adrian will handle Caruso, Emily said. Emily. Catherine leaned forward. What does that mean exactly, when a man like Adrian Valenti says he'll handle something? Emily looked at her. I don't know yet, she said honestly. But he told me this morning that he's trying very hard not to be reactive or retaliating. I'm choosing to believe him. Catherine studied her for a long moment with those lawyers' eyes that had seen 30 years of people choosing to believe things. All right, Catherine said. Then let me do my part. You let me handle the legal side, and you let him do whatever he's going to do, and you stay out of the middle. I'm already in the middle, Emily said. I've been in the middle since September of last year, and I didn't even know it. I know, Catherine said, and her voice went quieter. I know, and I'm sorry. Emily sat up straight. Don't be sorry, just win. Catherine almost smiled. That, she said, I can do. Emily called Adrian from the sidewalk outside Catherine's building. She's filing for contempt today on the TRO violations, she said. She can get the custody motion dismissed. She thinks Hartwell Associates can be investigated. Good, he said. What are you doing about Caruso? Working on it, he said. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now that's true, he said. I don't want to tell you something that isn't true. She stopped on the sidewalk. People moved around her, the way people moved around, stopped things in New York automatically, without acknowledgement. Adrian, I need to know that you're not going to do something that... She paused, looking for the right word. That makes this worse, he said. That makes you something you don't want to be, she said. That's what I was going to say. A silence. Do you remember what you said to me in my office? He said. That first night. I said a lot of things that first night. You said you didn't want someone to own your problem, he said. That you wanted the strength to solve it yourself. Yes. I've been thinking about that for weeks, he said. About what it means to solve something yourself versus destroying it. They feel like the same thing from the outside, but they're not. No, Emily said. They're not. I'm trying to find the version that looks like solving, he said. I don't have it yet, but I'm trying. She stood on the sidewalk with the city moving around her, and her phone pressed against her ear, and thought about a man who had spent 20 years being the version of himself that destroyed things because he didn't know another version was possible. Okay, she said. Okay. Keep trying, she said. And call me when you have something. What happened next moved fast. The contempt filing went in on Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, Marcus Webb's attorney had called Catherine's office to discuss terms, which meant Webb was scared, which meant someone above him was more scared. Friday, a federal agent named Kowalski called Adrian's personal cell, not his office line. His personal cell, which meant someone senior, had authorized the contact and asked for a meeting. Emily found out about this on Friday evening when Adrian called her from a car she could tell was moving. "Federal authorities want to talk to me about Caruso," he said. "How do they know about Caruso?" "Because I sent them what I had on Tuesday," he said. She absorbed this. "You went to the FBI," she said. "Not for the first time," he said. "It's a longer history than I've told you." "Adrian." "I know," he said. "There's more to it. I'll explain everything. Not tonight. Tonight I need to take this meeting, and I need you to stay home and keep Lily close and not open the door to anyone you don't know." The seriousness in his voice put ice in her chest. "Is something happening tonight?" she said. "I don't know," he said. "I don't think so, but I don't know." "Adrian." "Emily." His voice changed, went quieter. "Lock your door. I'll call you when the meeting's done. How long will it take?" "I don't know that either," he said. "A few hours." She went home. She locked her door. She sat on the couch and put on the television at low volume and watched Lily do a puzzle on the coffee table, a 50-piece puzzle of penguins, obviously, and tried to read the expressions on Lily's face for any sign that her daughter was picking up on the tension Emily was radiating. Lily put a penguin piece in the wrong place, examined it, removed it, found the right place. "Mama," Lily said without looking up, "you're doing the face." "What face?" "The face where you're thinking really hard and it's making you forget to relax," Lily said. Emily looked at her daughter. "You're 6, Emily said. 6 3/4, Lily said. "Almost 7. "You're almost 7 and you can read my face like that." "I've been practicing," Lily said seriously. "Also, Mrs. Okonkwo has the same face sometimes, and I asked her what it meant, and she said it meant she was solving something." "I'm solving something," Emily said. "Okay," Lily said, and put the right penguin piece in the right place with a small sound of satisfaction. Adrian called at 11:47 p.m. "Are you still up?" he said. "Yes." "Lily." "Asleep." "How is she?" Emily looked at the bedroom doorway in the dark. "Fine," she said. She finished her penguin puzzle. She went to bed at 8:30. A quiet sound that might have been relief. "The meeting went long," he said. "What happened?" "The federal investigation into Caruso was further along than I knew," Adrian said. "They've been building a case for 8 months. What I sent them this week filled in 3 gaps they couldn't close on their own." He paused. "They're moving on Caruso tonight. Arrest warrant was signed 2 hours ago." Emily sat up straight on the couch. "Tonight?" "Tonight," he said. "It's done, Emily. Or it will be by morning. Caruso goes back in. Webb loses his patron and his reason, and I suspect his attorney will have a deal on the table with Catherine by Monday." She sat in the quiet of her apartment and tried to locate the correct emotional response to this information, and found that what she landed on was not relief exactly, but something adjacent to it. Something that felt like a door that had been slowly closing for a year, suddenly completing its arc. "Is it really done?" she said. "The Caruso piece is done," he said. "The legal piece still has to play out. Catherine still has work to do. But the thing behind it, the thing driving it, yes, that's done." Emily pressed her hand against the couch cushion beside her, solid and real. "Are you okay?" she asked. A pause. "I'm better than I've been in a long time," he said, which is a strange thing to say on a night like this, but it's true. "Because it's resolved. Because it's resolved the right way," he said. He paused. "Without me becoming something I don't want Lily to find out about later." Emily closed her eyes. "That's why you went to the FBI," she said. "Strategic. Because it was the version that looked like solving instead of destroying." "Yes," he said. She sat with that for a moment. She thought about the night in the hotel corridor when she had told him she wanted the strength to solve her own problems. She thought about the way he had held that idea, not just heard it, but carried it. had let it change the shape of his thinking, had let a single conversation with a frightened woman recalibrate 20 years of instinct. "Adrian," she said. "Yes. Come over tomorrow," she said. "Not for a date, just come over. Lily's been asking about you. She wants to tell you about what happens when penguins find a mate, and I think you should have to sit through that." He was quiet for a moment. "What time?" he said. 10 planet, she said. "And bring croissants again." "Already planning on it," he said. But Caruso had one move left. They didn't know it yet. The arrest warrant was executed at 2 in the morning, and it went cleanly. Renato Caruso was taken from his apartment in Queens without incident, and by 3 a.m., he was in federal custody, and by 4 a.m., his attorney was making calls. Emily slept through all of it, finally genuinely slept for the first time in weeks, and Lily slept, and the city did its indifferent nighttime thing. At 7 in the morning, Emily's phone rang. It wasn't Adrian. It wasn't Catherine. It was a number she didn't recognize, and she almost didn't answer it, but something made her. "Is this Emily Carter?" The voice was male professional flat, in the particular way of someone reading from a script they hadn't written. "Who's calling?" she said. "My name is Daniel Russo. I'm an attorney. I represent interests connected to Renato Caruso's organization." A pause. "Ms. Carter, I'm calling to tell you that Mr. Caruso's arrest this morning was anticipated. He made arrangements in advance." Emily's grip on the phone tightened. "What kind of arrangements?" "Ms. Carter, where is your daughter right now?" The floor dropped out of Emily Carter's world. She was moving before the sentence was finished, through the apartment to Lily's room, pushing the door open, and Lily was there. Lily was in her bed with her arms thrown over her head, the way she always slept, her small chest rising and falling with the easy breath of a child who had no idea that the adults around her were waging something. Emily stood in the doorway, with the phone against her ear, and her heart trying to exit her chest, and her daughter's safe, visible breathing right there. "She's here," Emily said. Her voice came out flat and hard. "Good," the attorney said. "Then I would suggest you contact Adrian Valenti immediately and tell him that Mr. Caruso would like to remind him that there is more than one kind of leverage." The call ended. Emily stood in Lily's doorway. Then she called Adrian. He answered on the first ring again, and this time when he said her name, the word had something in it she hadn't heard from him before. She told him what the attorney had said word for word, and the silence that followed was not his usual silence. "Stay home," he said. "Don't go anywhere. I'm coming." "Adrian, what does it mean? What other kind of leverage?" "I'll be there in 15 minutes, he said. "Lock the door. Don't answer for anyone but me." He was there in 12. He came through the door and looked at Lily, who had woken up and was in the kitchen eating cereal, and was delighted to see him, and immediately began telling him about the penguin puzzle, and something in Adrian's posture changed, settled. She watched him look at her daughter the way you look at something you are actively counting to make sure it is still whole. "What's the other leverage?" Emily said low behind Lily's back. He turned to look at her. "Caruso made one call before his arrest," Adrian said. "My people intercepted the communication, but we didn't understand what it meant yet." He paused. "There's someone in Webb's network we didn't identify. Someone with access to the school." The cereal spoon clinked against Lily's bowl. "I want to hear about penguins," Lily announced to Adrian specifically. He looked at Emily. Emily looked at him. The thing that had been simple yesterday done, resolved the door completing its arc, was not done, was nowhere near done. But Lily was at her kitchen table with her cereal, and Adrian was in her apartment with his dark coat and his steady eyes, and Emily had fought through 9 months of isolation and fear, and the particular terror of a woman who was targeted not for what she was, but for who she stood next to, and she was still standing. "Sit down," Emily told Adrian quietly. "Let her tell you about the penguins." He sat. He listened to Lily talk about penguin mating habits with his complete unreadable attention. And under the table, where Lily couldn't see it, his hand found Emily's, and he held it without looking at her, and she let him. And they sat in the ordinary light of a Saturday morning, and let Lily's voice fill the kitchen, while the world outside sharpened itself into something they were both going to have to face. But not yet. Not for these few minutes. Not yet. Lily finished her cereal and her penguin monologue at approximately the same time, which was a mercy, because Adrian had been holding Emily's hand under the table for 20 minutes, and neither of them had moved, and there was a conversation that needed to happen that could not happen in front of a 6-year-old who was watching everything with eyes that missed nothing. "Can I watch the penguin documentary?" Lily asked. "The one with the man who talks really slow." "David Attenborough," Emily said automatically. "Yes, him." 30 minutes, Emily said. "Then we're going to Mrs. Okonkwo's." Lily slid off her chair and disappeared toward the living room with the focused efficiency of a child who had gotten what she wanted and knew not to push further. The television came on. The low, measured voice of a man who had spent his life making the natural world feel like a secret being told specifically to you filled the apartment. Adrian released Emily's hand. They looked at each other across the kitchen table. "Tell me about the person at the school," Emily said. "His name is Victor Slade," Adrian said. "Webb recruited him 8 months ago. He's a maintenance contractor. He has legitimate access to the building, has had it for 2 years. He's been passing information about Lily's schedule, her classroom location, the timing of yard breaks." Emily kept her face still. She had gotten very good at keeping her face still. "He hasn't touched," Adrian said. "There's no indication he was ever instructed to. He was there for information, for the threat potential." "Meaning if Caruso needed a stronger lever," Emily said. "Yes." "So arresting Caruso activated the lever," Emily said. "Because now he has nothing left to lose." "It's possible," Adrian said. "The call he made before the arrest went to a number we've now connected to Slade. We don't know what instructions were given." Emily stood up from the table. She walked to the counter and stood with her back to him for a moment, her hands pressed flat against the surface, and she breathed. "I need to get Lily out of school," she said. "Yes." "I need to get her somewhere safe while this resolves." "Yes, I have a place." "Not yours," Emily said, turning. "Not somewhere connected to you. That makes her a target in a different way." She thought for a moment. "My sister. Philadelphia. Lily could go to my sister." "That works," Adrian said. "Today." "Today." Emily agreed. She was already reaching for her phone. She called her sister Rachel in Philadelphia. Rachel, who was 41 and a nurse, and had 2 boys of her own, and had been asking Emily for 3 years to visit more often. And when Rachel answered, Emily said without preamble, "I need to send Lily to you for a few days. Today. I'll explain everything later, but right now I need to know if you can take her." A single beat of silence. "Put her on the train," Rachel said. "I'll be at 30th Street Station." Emily closed her eyes. "Thank you." She hung up and turned to Adrian. "I need 2 hours," she said. "You have them," he said. "I'll stay." Telling Lily was easier than Emily expected, which made her feel 2 contradictory things simultaneously. Relief that her daughter trusted her enough to accept the unexpected, and something close to grief that Lily had spent enough of her 6 years navigating disruption that she had gotten good at it. "Am I going because of the bad man?" Lily asked. She said it the way she said most things directly, without flinching the way children ask the questions adults spent energy avoiding. Emily sat on the edge of Lily's bed, while Lily packed her small backpack with the items she considered non-negotiable. Her penguin stuffed animal, the book about ocean animals, 2 pairs of socks that matched the ones she was wearing. "There's a situation," Emily said. "And until the situation is fixed, I want you somewhere I know you're safe." "With Aunt Rachel," Lily said. "Yes." "Her boys are loud," Lily said. "I know. But they're fun loud," Lily conceded. She zipped her backpack. She looked at Emily with those brown eyes that saw everything. "Are you going to be okay, Mama?" Emily reached out and touched her daughter's face. "Yes," she said. "Promise?" The word sat between them with all its weight. "I promise," Emily said. Lily nodded, accepting this, and stood up and swung her backpack over one shoulder, and then she walked out to the living room where Adrian was sitting on the couch, looking large and out of place, in the way he always looked slightly large, and out of place in Emily's small apartment, and Lily stopped in front of him. I'm going to Aunt Rachel's, Lily said. I heard, Adrian said. Will you make sure my mom is okay? Lily asked. Adrian looked at this 6-year-old child who had just asked him for a promise with the same directness her mother used for everything. And something moved in his expression that Emily, watching from the doorway, had never seen on his face before. Something that had nothing to do with power or calculation or the management of situations. Yes, he said. I will. Lily considered him. Okay, she said. And then she held out her arms. Adrian Valenti, who ran a business empire, who had spent 20 years being feared, who had not been embraced by a child, in longer than he could accurately remember, sat very still for approximately 1 second. Then he leaned forward and put his arms around Lily Carter and held her with the careful deliberateness of a man handling something he understood to be irreplaceable. Lily patted him on the back twice the way a small adult would, and then pulled away and said, I'm ready, Mama. Emily put Lily on the 11:15 Amtrak to Philadelphia with a ticket. Adrian had bought a bag of snacks she didn't need, and the phone number of the conductor written on a piece of paper tucked into her jacket pocket. She stood on the platform and watched the train pull away, and did not cry because she had things to do, and crying required stillness, and stillness was not available right now. Adrian stood beside her. She'll be fine, he said. I know, Emily said. Let's go. The next 18 hours were the longest of Emily's life and the most efficient. Catherine Marsh filed 3 additional motions by noon. Victor Slade was identified by Adrian's people and his location was passed to Agent Kowalski at the federal level, who had apparently been waiting for exactly this kind of development with the patience of someone who had seen this particular chess game before and knew which piece moved next. Slade was brought in for questioning by 2 p.m., which meant that by 3 p.m., he was making decisions about his own future that did not include continuing to work for Renato Caruso's dwindling network. Marcus Webb's attorney called Catherine at 4:15. Emily was sitting in Catherine's office when the call came in, and she watched Catherine listen for 40 seconds and then say very evenly, "That's not acceptable, but it's a starting point. We'll talk tomorrow," and hang up. "He wants a deal," Catherine said. "What kind of deal?" "Full cooperation with the federal investigation. He gives them everything he has on Caruso's organization, contacts, communications, the works in exchange for reduced charges and no jail time." Emily looked at her. "What do you think?" "I think it's the fastest way to close your case," Catherine said. "If Webb cooperates, the custody motion evaporates, the Hartwell Associates investigation accelerates, and you're legally clean within 30 days. She paused. "But it means Webb doesn't go to prison." "Does he go to prison in the alternative?" Emily asked. "Maybe. But maybe means a trial, and a trial means 18 months of this staying open." Catherine looked at her steadily. "It's your call, not mine." Emily sat with this. She thought about what she wanted. She took a real inventory of it, the way she rarely let herself, the way she usually didn't have the time for. She thought about Marcus Webb standing at the end of that service corridor, saying, "I've been very patient, Emily," and about the photograph of Lily at recess, and about 9 months of moving through her own life, like someone trying not to make noise. "He cooperates," Emily said. "And I wanted in writing that the custody motion is withdrawn with prejudice, and that Hartwell Associates evidence is formally declared inadmissible." "Done," Catherine said and picked up her pen. Adrian was waiting outside Catherine's building when Emily came out at 6 o'clock. He was standing on the sidewalk with his hands in his coat pockets in the way he stood when he was waiting. Not impatiently, not performing patience, just genuinely still in a world that moved around him. Emily stopped in front of him. "Webb's cooperating," she said. "It's essentially over." He looked at her. "How do you feel?" he said. It was such a direct question. Most people in his position would have said good or congratulations or something that closed the moment rather than opening it. He asked how she felt. "Strange," she said honestly. "Like I've been carrying something for so long that putting it down feels wrong. Like my arms don't know what to do without the weight." He nodded slowly. "That goes away," he said. "You sound like you know." "I do know," he said. She looked at him. "Tell me." I was quiet for a moment. They started walking, not toward anywhere in particular, just walking the way people walked in New York when they needed to be moving, but didn't need a destination. When I handed over the information on Caruso's organization 10 years ago, he said, I thought I would feel like I had done the right thing. And I did. But then I also felt like I had taken something apart that I didn't fully know how to live without. Like I had been operating at a certain tension for so long that when the tension released, I didn't know what to do with my own hands. What did you do? Emily asked. I worked, he said. I built the legitimate side of things into what it is now. I made myself very busy for about 3 years, and I told myself that was the same as being okay. Was it? No, he said. It was just busy. Emily walked beside him in the evening air. What would have been okay? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. This, he said finally. Something like this. Someone to walk next to and tell the truth to. He paused. I didn't think I'd find it. Emily looked at him sideways. Why not? Because of what I am, he said. What I've been. What you've been, she said. Not what you are. He looked at her. You do that, he said. You separate the tenses. Most people don't. Most people don't think about it carefully enough, she said. What you were shaped you. It doesn't own you. Those are different things. He was quiet for a long time after that. They walked 3 blocks in silence that was not uncomfortable. Then he said, I want to tell you something, and I need you to hear it properly. All right, she said. He stopped walking. She stopped with him. I'm not a good man, he said. I've made choices that have hurt people. Some of those things I can justify, and some of them I can't. I've spent years being something that frightened people, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend that the fear was always wrong. He looked at her directly. What I am trying to do, what I have been trying to do, since a woman grabbed my coat in a hotel corridor and made me feel like something other than what I'd been for 20 years, is be a different version of what I'm capable of. I don't know if I can fully get there, but I'm trying in a way I haven't tried before. Emily looked at him. Why are you telling me this? She said. Because you should know it before. He stopped. Before what? She said. He looked at her with those dark eyes that held everything and showed so little of it. Before I tell you that I'm in love with you, he said, and that I understand completely if that's too complicated or too much, or simply not something you want. But I'd rather say it and have you know than not say it and have you not know. The city moved around them. A cab passed. Someone laughed in a restaurant somewhere above them. The October air had turned genuinely cold, now the kind that asked you to decide how long you were willing to stay outside. Emily stood on the sidewalk and looked at Adrian Valenti, who had wrapped his arm around her in a hotel corridor when she was shaking, who had opened a folder and shown her what was coming for her daughter, who had sat in a Vietnamese restaurant and eaten pho for the first time and said, "This is very good, like you meant it," who had crouched down and been hugged by a 6-year-old and held on with the careful deliberateness of a man handling something irreplaceable. "You know what I noticed about you the very first night," she said. "In your office when I came to see you and you told me about the custody motion." "What?" he said. "You told me something terrible," she said. "Something that had been done to me that I hadn't known about, something that should have broken me open, and you told me in the most factual, steady voice like you knew I could handle it, like it wasn't even a question." He was listening. "Nobody does that," she said. "People wrap terrible things in softness because they don't trust you to hold them. You just handed it to me straight because you thought I was strong enough." She paused. "I fell a little bit in love with you right then, and I've been pretending I didn't ever since." Something happened to his face. She had seen many things move across it in the weeks she had known him. Consideration. Something approaching amusement. The particular alertness he wore when he was calculating. Even once or twice the shadow of something that wanted to be warmth and wasn't sure it was allowed. This was different. This was just him, without any of the architecture. For the exact duration of one breath, she saw the man underneath the version of himself he had built to survive, and he was not frightening, and he was not powerful, and he was not the name whispered in boardrooms and federal buildings. He was just a man who had been very lonely for a very long time and had just been told he didn't have to be. "Emily," he said. "Don't make it complicated," she said. "I have a 6-year-old in Philadelphia and a restraining order, and I work 2 jobs, and you run some kind of empire that I only partially understand. It's already complicated. Don't make the feeling part complicated too." "I wasn't going to," he said. "Good," she said. He reached out and tucked a piece of hair back from her face, a gesture so simple and so careful that she felt it in her sternum, and she looked up at him on the sidewalk in the October dark, and thought about courage, and about how long she had been spending it on survival, and how it felt right now to spend a little of it on something else. "Take me somewhere warm," she said. "I'm freezing, and I haven't eaten since this morning, and I want to hear you say something that has nothing to do with Caruso or Webb or federal investigations." "What do you want me to talk about?" he said. "Anything," she said. "Tell me something about yourself that isn't in a newspaper." He considered. "I can't cook anything except eggs," he said. "And even those are inconsistent." "That's very human," she said. "I have a dog," he said. "A large one. He's named after a Venetian doge, and he's extremely stupid, and I am very fond of him." She laughed. "What's his name?" "Dandolo," he said. "That's an absurd name for a dog." "He's an absurd dog," Adrian said. "He runs into walls." She was still laughing when he held the restaurant door open for her, and she went in, and it was warm inside, the way the best things were warm, not just in temperature, but in the relief of being out of the cold, the particular comfort of shelter after exposure, which was not such a different feeling from finding someone after a long time of being alone. The legal pieces finished falling into place over the following 2 weeks, with the particular efficiency of a system that, once in motion, did not require Emily's constant attention to keep moving. Catherine was brilliant and methodical, and sent Emily daily updates by text that were precise and professional, and occasionally contained a single dry comment at the end that told Emily the attorney was quietly enjoying herself. Webb signed his cooperation agreement. Hartwell Associates was referred for investigation by the state bar. The custody motion was withdrawn with prejudice, which meant it could not be refiled, which meant that particular door closed permanently, and Emily could stop checking over her shoulder for it. Caruso remained in federal custody. His attorney was negotiating terms that his attorney knew would not include freedom for a long time. Victor Slade cooperated fully in exchange for a plea deal that removed him from Lily's school and from Lily's life. Emily called Rachel in Philadelphia every evening. Lily was fine. Lily was watching nature documentaries with Rachel's boys, who had turned out to be fun-loud in a way that Lily approved of, and was teaching them about penguins with the missionary zeal of a 6-year-old who has found a captive audience. "She keeps telling the boys that penguins mate for life," Rachel said on the 5th evening call. "That's factually accurate," Emily said. "She's been looking at me very meaningfully while she says it," Rachel said. "She does that," Emily said. "Emily," Rachel's voice shifted. "Tell me about him." Emily was sitting at her kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold in front of her. She thought about where to start. "He's complicated," she said. "You're a single mother who works 2 jobs in New York City," Rachel said. "You can handle complicated." "He's very—" Emily paused. "He's very sure of himself in a way that should be off-putting, but isn't. He doesn't perform. He says what he means, and he means what he says, and he's not particularly interested in making it sound better than it is." "That's rare," Rachel said. "It is," Emily agreed. "Are you happy?" Emily sat with the question. She did what she had learned over years of not having room for it to actually do with questions like that. She sat with it and gave it genuine space and waited for an honest answer. "I think I might be getting there," she said. "I haven't been here in a while. I'd forgotten what the entrance looked like." Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then, "Bring Lily home this weekend. Bring him too if you want. The boys can run them both ragged, and you can sit on my couch and drink actual wine." Emily smiled. "I'll ask him," she said. She asked him the next morning. He was sitting on her couch. He had been coming over in the evenings, not staying, just coming over, filling the apartment that was too quiet without Lily with conversation, and the occasional brought dinner, and the general presence of a person who had decided apparently, that he wanted to be where she was as often as she would allow. She asked him if he wanted to come to Philadelphia for the weekend to get Lily. He looked at her. "To meet your sister," he said. "And her husband and their 2 boys," Emily said. "Fair warning, Rachel will interrogate you." "I'm not unfamiliar with interrogation," he said. "She's going to be less formal than a federal agent," Emily said. "She's going to ask you directly what your intentions are, and she's going to do it in front of the children." "What should I tell her?" he said. Emily looked at him. "Tell her the truth," she said. "Whatever that is." He was quiet for a moment. "That I intend to be here," he said, "for as long as you'll let me. That I'm not going to offer you a perfect version of something that doesn't exist. That I'll make mistakes, but I'll make them honestly." He paused. "And that your sister's nephews should know that if either of them upsets Lily at any point during this weekend, they will answer to me." Emily stared at him. "Don't say that last part to Rachel," she said. "Say it to the boys directly." He almost smiled. Understood. She had been preparing herself in the quiet late-night inventory she had always kept for the moment when this would feel like too much. When the weight of who he was and what he carried would tip the scale past what she could hold alongside her own life. She had been braced for it the way you braced for a pain you expected. It didn't come. What came instead was something she had almost forgotten was available to her, which was the simple daily accumulation of someone choosing to show up. Not dramatically. Not with grand gestures that required a response she didn't have the energy to make. Just here. Consistently here. Asking questions and listening to the answers and learning with the focused attention he brought to everything what it meant to be with someone, instead of adjacent to them. The morning before they left for Philadelphia, Emily was making coffee, and Adrian was on her couch reading something on his phone with Dandolo, who he had brought over, because the dog was as advertised extremely large and extremely stupid, and had immediately tried to sit on Emily's feet, which she found she did not mind lying across his feet like a very heavy blanket. Lily had called from Rachel's at 7:30 to ask if Adrian was coming. He had answered the phone before Emily reached it, because he had been the closest, and she had stood in the kitchen doorway, listening to him tell Lily, yes, he was coming, and yes, he would listen to the part about how penguins incubated their eggs because he hadn't heard that part yet. Lily's voice through the phone satisfied. "Okay. Also, Adrian Rachel's boys say you sound scary, but I told them you're not." "What did they say to that?" "Marcus said probably you were a little scary," Lily reported. "I said probably you were only scary to people who deserved it. Rachel said that was very mature." "She's right," Adrian said. "That is very mature." Emily turned back to the coffee maker. She poured 2 cups. She carried them both to the couch. She set one on the arm next to Adrian and sat down beside him, and Dandolo immediately tried to relocate his head from Adrian's feet to Emily's lap, and she let him because the dog weighed approximately as much as her dishwasher, and resistance seemed futile. Adrian ended the call and looked at her. "She told her cousin I'm only scary to people who deserve it," he said. "I heard," Emily said. "She's 6, he said. 6 years old." 6 3/4, Emily corrected. "Almost 7. He looked at her with an expression she had no word for. Not love exactly, or not only that something that contained love and also gratitude, and also the particular bewilderment of a man who had expected his life to look like one thing and found it looking like something entirely different and was still working out whether he deserved it. "What?" she said. "Nothing," he said. "Then, everything actually. But I don't have the right words yet." "You don't need them yet," she said. She drank her coffee. He drank his. Dandolo snored on her lap with the profound contentment of a dog who had found the best spot in the room. Outside the window, the city was doing what it always did, indifferent and enormous and moving at its own pace through a Saturday morning. And inside the apartment in the quiet that had stopped being lonely somewhere in the last few weeks without Emily quite noticing. The moment it changed, 2 people sat side by side with their coffee going warm in their hands, and the dog between them, and the weekend ahead of them, and the particular ordinary miracle of being somewhere safe. It wasn't the ending Emily had planned for herself. She had not planned at all, really. She had survived, and she had fought, and she had kept moving, and she had kept her daughter moving with her, and she had not left room in any of it for something like this. But it had found her anyway. In a hotel corridor in the dark when she was frightened and running and out of options. She had reached for a stranger, and the stranger had reached back. And here they were. The drive to Philadelphia took 2 hours and 14 minutes, and Dandolo slept across the entire back seat with his legs in the air, which Emily found both undignified and deeply relatable. Adrian drove. I was the kind of driver who didn't perform confidence behind the wheel, but simply had it, the kind that came from knowing exactly what you were doing and not needing anyone else to know you knew. Emily sat in the passenger seat with her coffee in the cup holder and watched the city thin out into highway and thought about all the versions of this morning she might have had instead. The ones where Marcus Webb had won. The ones where she had never turned left in that hotel corridor. The ones where she had said no to dinner and no to the park and no to the slow patient accumulation of someone who kept showing up. "You're quiet," Adrian said. "I'm thinking," she said. "About how differently this could have gone," she said. He was quiet for a moment. The highway opened up in front of them. "It went the way it went," he said. "That's not reassuring," she said. "It's not meant to be reassuring," he said. "It's meant to be true. The way it went is the only version we have, and in this version you're in my car going to get your daughter and Dandolo is asleep on my leather interior. He's going to leave hair everywhere," Emily said. "He always does," Adrian said. She looked out the window. "What happens after?" she said. "After everything is settled and the legal pieces are done, and there's no more Caruso and no more Webb. What does regular life look like?" He considered this with the seriousness he brought to questions that deserved it. "I don't know," he said. "I haven't had regular life in a long time. Possibly ever." "Me either," she said. "I've had survival. Survival looks like regular life from the outside, but it isn't." "No," he agreed. "It isn't." "I want regular," she said. "I want boring. I want Lily to have a Tuesday that's just a Tuesday. I want to go to the grocery store and not be scanning the parking lot." She paused. "I want to open a restaurant someday. A real one, not just working in someone else's." He glanced at her. "Tell me about the restaurant," he said. And she did. She talked about it for 40 minutes, this thing she had been carrying in the back of her mind for 3 years, like a folded piece of paper she took out and looked at sometimes, and then carefully put back. She talked about the kind of food she wanted to make. Honest food. The kind that had a history. The kind that tasted like someone's grandmother had made it and meant it. She talked about the neighborhood she had in mind, a stretch of Columbus Avenue she knew well enough to understand its rhythms. The lunch crowd, the Saturday morning foot traffic, the way the light came in. Adrian listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, "Do you have a name?" "Carter's," she said. "Simple. My name, my restaurant." "Good name," he said. "You're not going to offer to fund it," she said. It wasn't a question. "No," he said. "Good," she said. "Although," he said, "I do know people in commercial real estate on Columbus who could tell you what's actually available versus what gets listed." "That's information," she said. "That's different." "That's what I thought," he said. She settled back in the seat. "Tell me something," she said. "What does your regular life look like when you imagine it?" He was quiet for longer this time. "Quieter than what I've had," he said. "I've been running at a certain speed for 20 years, and he paused. "Tired of the speed, not of working, of the speed." He kept his eyes on the road. "I want to cook breakfast. Eggs specifically, even though mine are inconsistent. I want Dandolo to have a yard. I want to sit across from someone at dinner and not be thinking about 17 other things." "Someone," Emily said. "You," he said. "I want to sit across from you at dinner and not be thinking about 17 other things." She looked at his profile. The straight nose, the jaw that was always slightly set, the hands on the wheel that held it without gripping it. "That's very specific," she said. "I'm a specific person," he said. Dandolo made a sound in the back seat that was somewhere between a snore and a comment. "He agrees," Emily said. "He's asleep," Adrian said. "He agrees in his sleep," Emily said. "He's a perceptive dog." "He ran into my refrigerator this morning," Adrian said. "Perceptive about people," Emily clarified. less so about appliances. And Adrian laughed. Not the almost smile she had catalogued carefully in the early weeks. Not the quiet exhale that passed for amusement in a man who'd forgotten how to be fully amused. A real laugh, low and surprised, like something that had gotten out before he could moderate it. And Emily heard it and felt it land somewhere in her chest and stay there. She filed it away with the pho and the croissants and the hand under the table. Rachel's house was warm and loud in the specific way of a house with 2 boys under 10 and a dog who had just arrived to complicate the existing animal hierarchy. Lily came through the front door at a full sprint and launched herself at Emily with the force of a child who had been patient for 5 days and had used up every last reserve of it. Emily caught her and held her and pressed her face into Lily's hair and breathed her in that particular smell of her daughter that she had known since Lily was 4 months old, and that would, she was certain, be the thing she recognized most in any room on any day of her life. "I missed you," Lily said into Emily's shoulder. "I missed you more," Emily said. "That's not possible," Lily said. "I missed you so much I told Marcus and Theo about it, and they said I was being dramatic, but I wasn't." "You weren't," Emily said. Lily pulled back and looked at Adrian, who was standing slightly behind Emily, with his hands in his coat pockets and Dandelo's leash in one hand, and Dandelo was currently attempting to fit his entire head into Rachel's potted plant by the door, which was not going well. "You came," Lily said. "I said I would," Adrian said. Lily looked at him with her full assessing attention. "You look tired," she told him. "Lily," Emily said. "He does," Lily said. "Mrs. Okonkwo says when someone looks tired, you should tell them so they know someone noticed." Adrian looked at this child. "I am a little tired," he said. "You're right." Lily nodded, satisfied. "You can sit on Rachel's couch. It's very soft. I slept on it one night when the boys were too loud." She took his hand. "Come on, I'll show you." Emily watched her 6-year-old lead Adrian Valenti through her sister's hallway toward the living room, explaining the layout of the house as she went, pointing out which floorboard creaked and where the good blankets were kept, and she stood in the doorway for a moment and did not trust herself to speak. Rachel appeared beside her. "Well," Rachel said quietly. "Don't," Emily said. "I haven't said anything." "You were about to say something with your face," Emily said. Rachel looked at her with the expression of an older sister who had been reading Emily's face since before Emily could talk. "He held her hand all the way to the couch," Rachel said. "I know," Emily said. "He's trying very hard not to let it show that it's affecting him," Rachel said. "I know that too," Emily said. Rachel put her arm around Emily's shoulders. "He's a good man," Rachel said. "He's a complicated man who is trying to be good," Emily said. "I think that might be better." Rachel considered this. "Yeah," she said. "Actually, I think you're right." Rachel's interrogation happened at dinner, which Emily had predicted, and it was as direct as advertised. Rachel sat across from Adrian at the dining table with her husband Tom beside her. Tom, who was quiet and observant, and had the particular intelligence of a man who understood that his wife was better at talking, and had organized their dynamic accordingly, and asked Adrian between the salad and the main course what he did for a living. Adrian looked at her. "I run a holding company," he said. "Real estate logistics private equity." "I Googled you," Rachel said. "Most people do," he said. "The articles are interesting," Rachel said. "They're often inaccurate," he said. "Which parts?" "The parts that make good headlines," he said. Rachel looked at him steadily. "Are you a dangerous man?" Tom put down his fork. Emily held very still. Adrian didn't look away from Rachel. "I have been," he said. "I'm working on being something else." Rachel sat with that for a moment. "Because of Emily," she said. "Because Emily reminded me that something else was possible," he said. "The work is mine to do. But yes, she's why I started doing it." Rachel looked at her sister. Emily looked back at her. Rachel picked up her fork again. "The pot roast is going to get cold," she said. And that was that. After dinner, when the boys had taken Lily and Dandelo into the backyard for reasons that were loud and unclear, and Tom had retreated to the kitchen to do dishes with the air of a man who knew when to give people space. Rachel poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Emily and sat beside her on the couch. "He's in there," Rachel said, nodding toward the backyard, where Adrian had apparently been recruited to some game whose rules Lily was explaining with great authority. Letting a 6-year-old boss him around in front of 10-year-olds. Emily looked. Adrian was standing in the backyard, looking down at a situation involving what appeared to be a hula hoop and a disagreement about rules, and Lily was holding his hand again and making her case to her cousins with the forensic intensity she brought to arguments she intended to win. "He let her boss him around," Emily said. "That's different. He likes it." "I can see that," Rachel said. They watched him. "Are you scared?" Rachel asked. "Yes," Emily said. "Of what specifically?" Emily thought about it honestly. "That I've survived so much that I've forgotten how to do this. How to let something be good without waiting for it to stop." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "You know what I remember," Rachel said. "When Lily was 3 weeks old, and you called me from Cleveland at 2 in the morning because she wouldn't stop crying, and you hadn't slept in 4 days, and Daniel had just left. Do you remember what you said?" "I said I didn't know how to do this," Emily said. "You said, Rachel, I genuinely don't know how to do this," Rachel said. "And I said, nobody does, you just do it. And you did." She looked at her sister. "You don't have to know how to let things be good. You just do it." Outside, Lily had apparently resolved the hula hoop dispute in her favor, because she was now demonstrating something while Adrian and both cousins watched, and Dandolo had gotten the hula hoop around his neck somehow, and nobody seemed troubled by this. Emily drank her wine. "Okay," she said. "Okay," Rachel said. "I'm doing it," Emily said. They drove back to New York on Sunday evening, with Lily in the back seat pressed against Dandolo, who had given up on the back seat's full width and decided that sharing it with a small human was acceptable, possibly preferable. Lily had fallen asleep by the time they crossed into New Jersey, one hand still resting on the dog's enormous side, rising and falling with his breathing. Emily watched them in the mirror for a long moment. Then she looked at Adrian. "She loves that dog," she said quietly. "The dog loves her," Adrian said. "He's been following her around since we got there. He doesn't follow people. He follows her. He followed her because she fed him half her dinner when she thought nobody was watching," Emily said. "He doesn't care about motivation," Adrian said. "He cares about the result." She smiled. "Adrian," she said. "Yes. I want to say something, and I need you to just hear it without turning it into a negotiation." He glanced at her. "All right." "I'm not going to let you pay for the restaurant," she said. "And I'm not going to let you solve problems I can solve myself. And I'm going to push back when I think you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you the truth, even when it's inconvenient, and I'm not going to change those things because they're not things I'm willing to give up." "I know," he said. "And I'm also," she said, "going to stop pretending that I don't need anything from anyone, because I do. Not to be rescued. Not to have my problems owned. But presence. Someone in the apartment when it's quiet. Someone who asks how I feel and means it." She paused. "I need that, and I've been pretending for a long time that I don't." He was quiet for a moment. "I can do that," he said. "I know you can," she said. "I just needed to say it out loud." He reached across the console and took her hand, the way he had under the table, without looking at her, without making it into anything other than what it was. She held on. In the back seat. Lily slept, and Dandolo breathed, and the highway unrolled in front of them, and New York came up on the horizon the way it always did. Sudden and enormous, and lit up, like it was auditioning for something. And Emily Carter looked at it through the windshield, and felt for the first time in longer than she could accurately remember, like she was going home rather than going back. 3 months later. Catherine Marsh called on a Tuesday morning with the particular tone of voice she reserved for good news she had worked hard for. "It's done," she said. Emily was at Calloway's in the break room with a coffee she was actually enjoying because Tuesday mornings had become, as requested, mostly just Tuesday mornings. She sat up straight. "All of it," she said. Caruso pled guilty Friday to 3 federal charges, including conspiracy and witness intimidation. He's looking at 12 years minimum. Webb's cooperation agreement was finalized. He testified last week, and the DA accepted his plea. Hartwell Associates surrendered their license in New York State yesterday morning. Catherine paused. And the civil case is closed. No outstanding motions, no pending actions, nothing. It's done, Emily. Completely done. Emily sat in the break room of Calloway's restaurant, where she had been working for 3 years, and looked at a wall that had a calendar on it from 2 years ago that nobody had taken down, and she breathed. "Thank you," she said. "Catherine, Don't," Catherine said. "Not unkindly. You paid your bills on time, you followed every instruction, and you didn't fall apart when you had every reason to. Thank you is mine to say to you." A pause. "Now go do something with your Tuesday." Emily hung up. She sat for a moment. Then she texted Adrian. "It's done. All of it." He responded in under 30 seconds, "I know. Kowalski called me an hour ago. I was waiting for Catherine to tell you first." She stared at her phone. "You knew for an hour?" "Yes. And you waited. It was your news to hear your way." She sat with that for a moment. Then she typed, "Dinner tonight. Carter's eventually. Somewhere under $50 in the meantime." His response, "I know a place. 7 o'clock. Under $50, she typed again. 60 at most. Adrian. Fine. 53, and I'm rounding down. She put her phone in her pocket and went back to work and spent the rest of her shift feeling lighter than she had felt in so long that the lightness itself felt strange. The way your body feels strange after you put down something heavy you'd been carrying so long, you'd forgotten the weight had a source. The thing that happened next was the thing Emily had not seen coming, which was that she had underestimated herself. She had always known she was capable. She had always known in the practical, unsentimental way she knew most things about herself that she could work and fight and endure. What she had not known, what 2 years of survival mode had quietly erased from her accounting of herself, was that she was also capable of building, not just maintaining, not just keeping things from falling apart, actually building. The idea for Carter's had been a folded piece of paper for 3 years. In January, it became a business plan. She wrote it at her kitchen table in the evenings after Lily went to bed, using a notebook she had bought for $2 at the drugstore on 72nd, because there was something important to her about writing it by hand, about the friction of pen on paper, making it real in a way that a screen didn't. She showed it to no one for 3 weeks. Then she showed it to Jasmine, who read it at the kitchen table and looked up and said, "Emily, this is real. This is actually real." "I know," Emily said. "You need a business loan," Jasmine said. "I know," Emily said. "I've been looking at SBA programs." "You need a space." "I have 3 locations I'm researching on Columbus." Jasmine looked at her. "When did you become this person?" "I've always been this person," Emily said. "I just didn't have room for her until recently." She told Adrian about the business plan on a Thursday evening. She showed him the notebook. He read it with the same focused attention he brought to everything, and did not say anything for almost 5 minutes, which was either very good or required clarification. "Well," Emily said, "the food cost projections are slightly conservative," he said. "Which is actually smart for a first-year plan. Most people are too optimistic." "I budgeted for everything going wrong," she said. "I noticed," he said. "You've built the restaurant to survive its own worst year." "I've been building things to survive their worst year for a long time," she said. He looked at her across the table. "The location on Columbus near 79th, he said. "The one you marked with the asterisk. What about it?" "I know the building owner," he said. "He's been looking for a long-term tenant, not someone chasing a 2-year lease. If you're thinking long-term, I'm thinking my whole life," Emily said. "Then I'll make a call," he said. "Introduce you. The conversation is yours to have. I'm just opening the door." She looked at him. "Opening the door," she said. "And then standing outside it," he said. "I know the difference." She reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. "I know you do," she said. "That's why I showed you the notebook." The meeting with the building owner happened on a Friday morning in February, and Emily walked in alone the way she had walked into Catherine's office alone, and Adrian's office alone, and every room that mattered alone, and she sat down and she talked about her vision for the space with the clarity and specificity of a woman who had been thinking about this for 3 years and knew every detail of it the way you knew the layout of your own apartment in the dark. The building owner, a man named Gerald Park, who was 70 and had owned the building for 30 years and had opinions about what it deserved, listened to her for 20 minutes without interrupting. Then he asked her 3 questions about her financial projections. She answered all 3 without hesitation. Then he asked her what kind of restaurant she wanted it to be, and she said, "The kind where people come back because the food tastes like someone made it for them." And he looked at her for a long moment. "I've had that space for 2 years," he said. "I turned down 4 restaurant groups. You know why? They wanted short leases," Emily said. "They wanted quick money," he said. "There's a difference." He picked up her business plan from the table between them. "This is a life plan, not a restaurant plan." "Yes," she said. He extended his hand. "5-year lease with option to renew," he said. "Fair market rate, no tricks." She shook his hand. She called Adrian from the sidewalk outside. "I got the space," she said. A pause. Then, "Congratulations, Carters." "Don't make me cry on a public sidewalk," she said. "I'm not doing anything," he said. "You're being very—" She stopped. "You're just being you. That's the problem. You keep just being you and it keeps doing things to me." "I'll try to be less myself," he said. "Don't you dare," she said. He laughed again. That real one, the one that had gotten out before he could moderate it, the one she had been collecting since the car ride to Philadelphia. She had a small private inventory of them now. She planned to keep adding to it indefinitely. Carter's opened on a Thursday in April. Not a soft opening, not a friends and family thing, not a preview, a real opening with a sign in the window and a menu printed on heavy paper that Emily had chosen herself, and a kitchen she had stood in the night before alone and simply breathed in for a long time. Lily had drawn a penguin on the chalkboard by the door, which Emily had decided was staying permanently. Mrs. Okonkwo came for lunch and ate everything in front of her with the focused appreciation of a woman who took food seriously and declared the pot roast transcendent, and left Emily a 20% tip that Emily tried to give back, and Mrs. Okonkwo absolutely refused. Jasmine came with her husband and cried a little and tried to pretend she wasn't. Rachel drove up from Philadelphia with Tom and the boys, who ate an amount that required Emily to restock before dinner service. Catherine Marsh came at 6:30 and ate alone and sent Emily a text from the table that said simply, "You built something real. Well done." Adrian came at 7. He came alone the way she had asked him to, without an entourage or a car parked outside, or any of the weight of what he was in the world outside this door. He came in the coat she recognized, with his hands in his pockets, and he stood just inside the entrance and looked at what she had built. She watched him look at it. He looked at the tables she had chosen, the warm light she had fought the contractor for the chalkboard with Lily's penguin, the menu on the heavy paper, the kitchen pass-through, where she could see her cook moving with the confidence of someone who had been given a real kitchen and knew what to do with it. He looked at it all. Then he looked at her. She had never seen that expression on his face before, and she had been cataloging his expressions for months. It wasn't pride exactly, though it contained pride. It wasn't love, though it contained that too. It was something older and quieter than either, something that looked like a man seeing the proof of something he had been slowly coming to believe was true, and finding in the seeing that he had been right. "Table for 1, Emily said. He looked at her. "I'd like a table for 2, he said. "I'm expecting someone." She raised her eyebrows. Lily appeared from the kitchen door in her good dress and the sneakers with the repaired sole, carrying 2 menus with the focused solemnity of a 7-year-old who had been given an important job and intended to execute it with distinction. "Right this way," Lily said in the voice she used when she was being very serious about something. She led Adrian to the best table in the restaurant, the one by the window. The one Emily had known from the first walkthrough was the best one, the one that caught the evening light. Adrian sat. He accepted the menu from Lily with both hands the way you accepted something from a child when you understood that the giving was important. "Our special tonight," Lily said, "is pot roast. Mrs. Okonkwo said it was transcendent." She paused. "I don't know what that means, but she said it very seriously." "It means it's exceptional," Adrian said. "Okay," Lily said. "I'll tell Mama you want that." She started to go, then turned back. "Adrian." "Yes." "I'm glad you came tonight," she said. He looked at her. "Me too," he said. Lily went back to this kitchen with the authority of someone who had places to be, and Adrian sat at the table by the window and looked out at Columbus Avenue, at the people moving past on a Thursday evening in April in New York City, doing what people did, living what they lived. Emily came to the table. She didn't have a notepad. She stood beside him and looked out the window with him for a moment. "How does it feel?" he said. "Like something I built," she said. "That's the best way I can describe it. Like something that's mine, that came from me, that I'm going to stand behind every day." "That's exactly what it is," he said. She looked at him. "You know what I keep thinking about," she said. "Tell me." "That night in the hotel corridor," she said. "I grabbed your coat because there was nobody else and I was out of options. I wasn't thinking about anything except getting through the next 60 seconds. She paused. "And you just held on. You didn't ask questions. You didn't make it complicated. You just held on." "You needed it," he said. "I did," she said. "But most people would have moved away." "I'm not most people," he said. "No," she said. "You're really not." He reached up and took her hand where it rested on the back of the chair beside him, the way he had taken it under the kitchen table and in the car on the highway, without ceremony, without making it into a statement. She let him hold it. Outside, the city moved. Inside, the kitchen was warm and working, and Lily was somewhere near the pass-through, explaining to the cook the structural differences between emperor and king penguins, and Dandolo was at home running into furniture with cheerful incompetence, and the chalkboard by the door had a penguin on it that would be there every day this restaurant was open. "I need to get back to the kitchen," Emily said. "I know," he said. "I'll send Lily with the pot roast." "I'll be here," he said. She started back toward the kitchen. At the pass-through, she turned. He was sitting at the table by the window, where the evening light came through in the coat she recognized, with his hands wrapped around the water glass, the way he held things with the careful steadiness of a man who had learned late that the things worth holding required a different kind of grip than the one he'd spent 20 years using. He was looking at her. She looked back. There was a whole story in that look. Everything that had happened, from a hotel corridor to a park bench, to a Vietnamese restaurant, to a Philadelphia living room, to a Tuesday phone call, to a Thursday night in April, when a woman opened the door of something she had built, and the man who had held on when she grabbed his coat walked through it. She nodded once. He nodded back. She went into her kitchen and she cooked, and outside the window, New York did what New York always did. And Carter's was full on its first night in a way that told Emily, with the clarity of something you know in your body before you know it in your mind, that it would be full for a very long time. A single mother who had kissed a stranger out of desperation had spent 2 years being told by circumstance that she was small, that she was manageable, that she could be used and frightened and worn down until she gave up. She had not given up. And a man who had spent 20 years being feared by everyone in every room he walked into had spent those same 2 years being told by his own life that he was only worth what he could control, only valuable for what he could destroy only safe if he stayed hard and stayed distant and never let anything close enough to matter. He had let something close enough to matter. The story had started with a frightened woman grabbing a stranger's coat in the dark, looking for 60 seconds of safety in a world that had stopped offering her any. It had become something neither of them had planned, both of them had earned, and neither of them would ever take for granted again. Emily Carter had not needed a man to save her. She had needed 60 seconds, and she had used them to save herself, to save her daughter. And without meaning to, without planning it, without any of the careful management she applied to everything else in her life, to save the man everyone feared most, who turned out to be the one person brave enough to hold on when she reached for him. That was the whole truth of it. And it was more than enough.